Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show. I really do not have a tasking for you today because it's Wednesday. It's also July 15th, which is the new tax day this year. So I guess your tasking would be go tell everybody about this show. In fact, that's what your tasking will be. Tell 5 people about this show. Do that. We're crushing it in the ratings, up to 27 on iTunes news commentary list. So I can't thank you all enough. And I tell you what, why don't we just do this? Let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back in on a Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. On the experts, the truth has arrived. So, you know, it's interesting. I got a couple sound bites that I want to point out. You know, I mean, I could sit here and watch the news literally all day, all night. And as I said yesterday, it's a slow news week, but there's some very pointed things that have happened that I feel like I have to point out. And one of them, well, I'm going to play a soundbite from Don Lemon. Probably one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in media. And then, well, first, let's start out with Fox News, which has gone, there's the left. And Fox News is, you know, there's the right, there's center, and there's left. Fox News is all the way over left now. Very few of the shows on are really conservative anymore. And I guess we should define conservative for the way that, basically the way that I look at it, and hopefully the way you look at it, just slow to change. And when you talk about slow to change and looking for effective solutions without changing the Constitution. I mean, really, it's constitutionalist. But when we look at Fox News, the thing that used to stand out about Fox News, you know, when there was something happening, they really did give you fair and balanced reporting. I didn't even know if they use that slogan anymore. I don't really watch enough Fox News to actually see if they do. But you know, they got rid of Shepard Smith, and you thought, well, maybe they're going to go back into the right, you know, position now and get themselves realigned with conservatives who are looking for real facts and real news. But I know Martha McCullough, I guess, has always been kind of wonky, kind of liberal. I mean, I've watched her interviews ever since the president was, well, I mean, I watched her interviews for years, but really it started coming out when the president was running in 2016. But when Shepard Smith left, she definitely, as far as the big names at Fox, I mean, she's far left. And watching her interview Sheila Jackson Lee was something like something you would see on CNN. They don't press. Nobody presses anybody. I watched, which, you know, I should play that as well. I watched there's just a little snippet of the interview with Bubba Wallace, and I don't think I've ever played that. But it's you'll see what I'm talking about. When they interview people, they don't press them. They don't press them at all. They just ask a question. When they say something that you're like, are you kidding me? You just said that? You know, like Lawrence Jones is interviewing Bubba Wallace, and he doesn't push back. He's just like, That's it. Let me play part of that, and then I'm going to play Sheila Jackson Lee. But let's play this first.
You know, and I don't know how much you want to talk about this, but I was watching some of the attacks that happened via social media and some of the interviews you gave, and I remember there was a controversy that happened with one of your colleagues, and you immediately said they should be forgiven, and there was still a place for them.
First of all, he acts like that was like years ago. Hey, Lawrence, that was this year. It's very recently. I don't know. I get so bothered by all this. So let me go ahead and continue with this.
Do you feel like that same level of grace and forgiveness was extended to you?
By drivers, for sure. By the simple-minded fans, no.
Simple-minded fans and all these trolls. When I made memes about Bubba Wallace, saying that he literally called us simple-minded, that he and NASCAR and Steve Phelps, the president of NASCAR, all jumped to the conclusion that this noose that was tied up in his supposed noose, I should say, tied up in the garage, was obviously somebody who was racist and white, and obviously had something to do with the rebel flag or the Confederate flag, whatever you want to call it, and NASCAR's stance and Bubba Wallace's stance against that. As it turns out, it was not a noose. It was a garage pole that was about as big as your hand, couldn't fit over your neck, and had been there since 2019 that they know. It could have been there longer. And he says, we're simple-minded. But when he says this, he gets no pushback from Lawrence Jones. It's just, this isn't journalism. This is like late night interview television is what it's like on Fox News now. There's no pushback.
You're never going to get that from them.
Listen to this part one more. Listen to this part one more time, because I want you to hear clearly how Lawrence Jones says this. Bubba Wallace answers, and there's no pushback. Here you go. I'm going to play this one part again.
Was extended to you?
By drivers, for sure. By the simple-minded fans, no. You're never going to get that from them. They'll always kind of carry that chip on their shoulder and do everything to knock you off your pedestal. So their job is to always deliver hate. Immediately.
Did you see that? Their job, the simple-minded fans, the ones that have been with NASCAR like myself, watching NASCAR since I was a child, calls us simple-minded, and Lawrence says, and always full of hate. Yeah. What is this? It's like watching Jimmy Fallon interview somebody.
Deliver hate before the facts are even given. So that's something I've learned a long time ago.
Which is exactly what he did, which he does bring up here.
You're not going to make everybody happy. I went through a lot of stress of trying to make everybody happy, and one wrong move would blow up, and you quickly realize that you'll never make everybody happy. And
especially when you're going around accusing people of being a racist, you knucklehead. This is 26-year-old knucklehead right here. This has nothing to do with color. I mean, he's definitely a racist. He thinks that white people are just out to get him. He's half white. I mean, literally, if you look at this guy, he looks like a guy with a tan. I mean, there's no racism here in any of this stuff that they've been talking about, yet he feels the need to point out this stuff because one of his parents is black, as though he's the target. He's the target. It seems like nowadays, not people in the inner city, but these celebrities, they want to be oppressed so bad. They feel like it's, it is the thing that makes them worthy, that same narcissistic hero type of mentality, that if they're the hero of oppression, then they have made it. They have risen to the occasion. They have done something. I mean, I don't know anybody who wants oppression, but these celebrities, it seems like they want it so bad. Listen to what he says here.
So there's no need in wasting your time or energy or efforts on that. But from colleagues and peers and competitors, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. A lot of people, when you were on The View and you talked about the simple-minded fans, a lot of people pounced on that interview. Yeah. They said, what do you mean when you say you're being simple-minded?
You don't give yourself enough time to understand and educate yourself. You quickly just jump to a conclusion. And yeah, people will say the same about me, but I'm just doing what I was delivered facts on.
Well, you weren't delivered facts. When you were delivered the facts, you said, no, it's still a noose. But the real fact here is that This guy is 26 years old, and he thinks that race car fans, these are just race car fans. These aren't, we're not talking about people who are signing up to be, like his fan base, like there's some kind of fan club, or like we work for him or something. We're just fans of racing. I like to go there and watch the cars go by at 200 miles an hour, literally, 30, 40 feet away from me. It's the most exhilarating thing ever. So loud and powerful, and you can smell and feel the wrecks. And what could have, not anymore. I'm not giving NASCAR a dime, and I'm not participating in anything that they do. It's not a boycott. I just don't want to have anything to do with them anymore. I don't appreciate being called simple-minded and racist. And I don't owe anything to this 26-year-old punk who thinks he knows everything. He's just so narcissistic. It's like narcissism has just enveloped the world. It's so palatable now. And when you look at what's interesting, I was reading an article a minute ago about President Trump's niece who wrote this book. It's going to go nowhere. Like all the books, the quote unquote telltale books about the president, they don't go anywhere. Why? Because they're all written by people who have an ideological bend against the president. It's not that they found something or have something to hang over him. The stuff that's being reported in her book is just ridiculous stuff that most of it's stuff that everybody knows already. And the other stuff is she's trying to boo-hoo her way into a book so she can injure the president because she was a huge Hillary Clinton fan. But when I'm listening to this guy, and Fox News has him on, and Fox has I would say a big part of the Fox News viewing audience are most likely NASCAR fans. But according to this guy, we're just simple-minded. We're just simple-minded. But anyway, I didn't even want to play the whole thing because the whole thing is just ridiculous. It doesn't get any better from there. He's just a narcissistic 26-year-old kid that hasn't done anything to change the world. He's not doing anything now to change the black lives that are being oppressed in this country. And there are some black lives. There's poverty pretty much. I'd say that there's white lives, Asian lives. Poverty is the oppressor, and learned helplessness and the indoctrination of this communist groupthink. Those are the oppressors. But this guy doesn't know anything at all. So I wanted to play that soundbite, but I also wanted to show you how in contrast that is to this interview with Sheila Jackson Lee, who's so far left, she's out of this universe. So here's that interview. And I'm going to go through this just like I did the other one because it's the same type of response. Let's see here.
On this and other stories, Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Congresswoman, thank you very
She does not look thrilled to be there, first of all.
much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, these stories break everyone's heart.
Now, she's talking about 21 children have been killed in the U.S. since July 4th. 21 children. And so she's going to get Sheila Jackson Lee's opinion on this, and it is exactly like you would get from Black Lives Matter or any of the rest of the radical left. You're going to see who she blames, and then listen to the lack of pushback that she gets from Martha McCollum. And then as we go on through the interview, it just becomes another CNN type of late night interview. Just listen to it.
I've seen an escalation in violence in the United States over the past several weeks. What's your response to that grandmother when she talks about Black Lives Matter and what she talks about what she's seeing in her community?
My heart breaks for all of these families. I've been engaged with families who've lost children through gun violence all of my legislative career. I've been a major advocate and supporter for gun safety legislation, background checks, issues dealing with trafficking of guns.
Nothing that she just talked about, with the exception of maybe trafficking guns, but none of that is going to do anything to stop this. Almost all these murders are done with illegally acquired weapons right? Those are stolen guns. Those are guns that are shipped here. China, we've had multiple busts over the past year of China with like hundreds of thousands of guns being shipped over here from China illegally. This stuff is going on constantly. When I was in the FBI, we did gun buys all the time. There's illegal guns all over the street. You could take away every single legal gun in the United States. You could take them all away. There'd still be millions and millions and millions of guns on the street, and the bad people are the ones that would have them. But they don't even think like this.
But unfortunately, our Congress, the Republicans, have been dominated by the National Rifle Association.
Has nothing to do at all with any of these shootings. How do these weirdos get into office? I'm going to tell you her background here in just a second. It's appalling.
So getting guns out of neighborhoods and out of the hands of perpetrators has been very difficult. I want to take the cause of that grandmother, as I've done over the years with my colleagues. But as well, I want to recognize the fact that Black lives do matter in whatever category we're speaking of. And we must realize
that makes no sense whatsoever. Of course, Black lives matter. All lives matter. White, brown, Asian, whatever. They all matter. And I think that is one of the most ridiculous things and really dangerous things in this country is when you say all lives matter, that they automatically think you're a racist or you're taken away from Black lives matter. All lives matter means all lives, right? Blue lives matter means cops matter, but all lives matter means everybody's important. Do they not want everybody to be important? Do they think that that's not possible? Even Bubba Wallace said, no life matters until Black lives matter. Well, Black lives matter, you idiot. It's getting to a point where this is so over the top stupid that it's very difficult for me to come on this show and play these sound bites because they're so dumb. And I don't know how these people keep getting elected. It's crazy.
That we are not accepting of violence in any way, and the fight goes on. Guns are too many in this community, and particularly in communities that are impoverished.
Now, you notice Martha McCullough hasn't said anything. She's got this blank look on her face like when you whistle and a dog turns its head sideways. That's what she looks like. And you have Miss Jackson Lee over here saying all kinds of nonsensical stuff and no pushback. The pushback comes in the way of a very, light question. But the other thing that you're going to see coming up here, which this is, I remember being on with Megyn Kelly one time on her show. She asked me the question. As soon as I start talking, she starts rolling her finger in front of me, telling me that I have to go faster, faster. I hadn't even gotten 5 words out of my mouth. And that's the way they do these shows. None of it's like this podcast. At least I get something out. On these shows, you can't get anything out, and because they're going so fast. And Martha McCullough is one of the worst, because is not that I care whether or not Sheila Jackson Lee has a voice on Fox, but as she's trying to spew her propaganda, Martha McCullough makes the interview tense because she keeps saying yes and she just totally cuts her off when she's saying this legendary, crazy propaganda that we want to hear. We want to hear what she has to say. I'll keep playing it.
And what happens in impoverished communities, there's a sense of hopelessness. There's a sense of unemployment. It's like PTSD, drug abuse, substance abuse, and no hope, no jobs.
Well, that's because of the Democrat Party, but also because self-responsibility is not taught in the inner city. It's not taught in the schools. Schools teach kids that everything that they think matters, and that they deserve to have a voice, and that they should have a voice. I mean, that's not the real world. That's kind of the world that they're pushing out now. But what happens when you have people who have this narcissistic, over-the-top, notice me type of thing is that you end up filling government or agencies or businesses with people who are just there because it makes them feel good about themselves. There's no other reason why they're there most of the time. She's such a...
And so when there's a sense of hopelessness, people take up arms.
Mm-hmm.
It's helplessness, learned helplessness. Is there hope in the inner city? Probably not a lot. Yeah, I grew up poor. There's not a lot of hope when you're poor. But there's a lot of gangbangers that don't give two craps about hope. They're freaking raking in the money, and they got power. And that's all they're concerned with. And a lot of these children and people are getting killed by those exact people.
Unfortunately, the arms are dumped into our inner city neighborhood.
They're not dumped. They're brought in there. She makes it sound like the NRA is personally driving down to these cities and just dumping out a whole truckload of weapons and telling everybody, come get them. But that's not the case. It's the bad, evil people that have access to these illegal weapons, illegally acquired weapons. That's how they're getting in there. They're not dumped. They're trafficked into there. They're brought into there by people who know exactly what they're doing. That's not the government.
We've all got to confront this.
Yeah.
I cannot in any way stand in the shoes of that grandmother for the pain that she's feeling now. All I can do is stand with her and alongside of her and embrace her and say that we must say
Worthless.
no more. But we've got to end the societal pressures of young black men that lead to this kind of violence.
Well, here's a clue for you, Miss Jackson Lee. Those pressures and those things that are going on in the inner city are allowed to happen by the governments of the city and the federal government. They don't do anything to re-educate people there, to make them feel empowered, to crack down on the gangbangers and the drugs. In fact, they're taking the power away from police to crack down on the drug dealers and the drugs and the violent offenders. They're actually removing cops from these inner city places where exactly where they should be at, and they should probably be doubled, and they should be taught how to get along with the rest of the community that aren't thugs and gang members. But there's nobody doing that. Jackson Lee. I'm surprised she hadn't tried to change her last name.
One of the things that's happened here in New York is that they've pulled 600 plainclothes officers off the street, and those officers have been responsible during their tenure, which doesn't exist anymore, of pulling hundreds, probably thousands of guns off the street.
Yep.
But now they're not there anymore to do that. Was that a mistake in New York?
Well, frankly, I believe that what the protesters and what I've been saying is you need.
That has nothing to do with that question that she just asked about. She didn't ask about protesters. She was talking about the plainclothes police officers who I used to work with when I was in the FBI. I was a plainclothes. I mean, that's what we are in the FBI. We're plainclothes. We're on the street. We're on a street squad. But these were detectives that we worked with from organized crime and Joint Terrorism Task Force, things like that, intel, and that's what Martha McCullen, that's the question she's asking. She doesn't stop her. She doesn't redirect her back to the question. She just lets her talk about something that's not that.
To put on the street the kinds of programs that take kids off the streets, teenagers off the streets. You've got to pour into them character building and activities that will provide them with role models. I just said there's a sense of hopelessness when you're impoverished. Mm-hmm. Where's the summer jobs programs that are very important? Where's
the $1 billion that de Blasio's wife spent on homeless yoga? She lost $1 billion, can't even be accounted for. Where's that money? That would have gone a long ways, let me tell you.
Protection, there is no doubt.
That's 1/6 of the entire NYPD budget of $6 billion. And de Blasio's wife was put in charge and given $1 billion for yoga for the homeless. Gone.
I have no quarrel with that. That's a decision that was made by the city of New York. I don't know what the purpose of that was, but I know that they can do a good substitute. A good substitute can be investing resources into inner city neighborhoods and getting programs for these young men to be involved in.
It's two different things. You know, you want to fix the culture in the inner city, then you all should, or everybody should take part in it if they could. I mean, you got to be careful because people get killed there. There's murders every day in the 75th precinct, in the really bad places in Chicago, 75th precincts in New York. but all over the place, wherever the inner city is at, you go in there and you try to tell people how to live, you better have a police force with you, because you won't be able to work with the good people, because the bad people will kill you. It's that bad. I remember we were going to do surveillance one night, and we were on the edge of the 75th precinct, and they literally sat us down. It's the first time I've been out there. They said, you must be very careful where you go here. And you're going to hear gunfire. You will hear it. So, we go, we get the eye. That's the whatever perp that we were watching at the time. And can only be one person on the eye basically at a time, sometimes two. But, the rest of us go, and we position ourselves around the area where we're watching. And I'm sitting there in my vehicle with my eyes peeled, and you can hear automatic weapons fire. It sounded like something you would hear in a war zone. Well, it is a war zone. That's why. You go in there and you try to help, you better have a police force with you, because you very well could be shot at while trying to do the right thing. But nonetheless, that's what needs to happen. Not getting rid of the NRA. That's not going to do anything. Or wishful thinking. It's not going to do anything.
So
it's heartbreaking. This family said that.
Here we go. It's like she can't even finish with her point. If you're not going to give somebody an allotted time, why even have them on? It's like ridiculous how she starts pressuring right here, because she's getting towards the end of the however many minutes they do here.
We're trying to get out of that neighborhood. We heard the same thing from the one-year-old's family yesterday as well. I do want to give you an opportunity to respond to this mayor's study that shows that it would take quadrillion dollars to do the reparations program that the mayors have suggested.
First of all, who uses the term quadrillion dollars? I mean, I don't know anybody who uses that term, but I'm assuming that's $4 trillion. But they're talking about $4 trillion, right, to be used for this program.
What are your thoughts on that kind of enormous number, and how would you determine if there were to be a reparations program?
$4 trillion for reparations. That's what they're talking about. $4 trillion for reparations. Reparations, money given to people that were never oppressed, that they weren't even alive when the people that were enslaved were slaves. Instead of taking $4 trillion and pouring that money into the inner city to help businesses get more police officers in there, train the officers how to work in those locations better, doing studies to develop actually what tactics are effective. And if it was a chokehold, working to the point where you can get that chokehold right and defining the situations where you use it, like the imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury. I mean, at that point, you're actually escalated up to use of deadly force. So if somebody's doing something that's that deadly in New York City, you can't use a chokehold. Stupid. It's absolutely ridiculous. But they're not pouring money into any of this stuff. They're talking about reparations as though you would give that money out. And this is not a racial statement. I don't care who the group of people, where they could be white, Chinese, it doesn't matter, black. You give people $4 trillion. First of all, the powerful people are going to somehow magically end up with a lot of that money. Businesses that are corporations will somehow magically end up with that money. But the rest of the people, look, if they come from nothing and you give, it's like winning the lottery, and you give them a certain amount of money and it's enough money for them to live high on the hog, that's what they're going to do. And it's going to be gone. That money will be gone. If you teach people how to build better communities, and then you pour your money into those programs to help them do that, instead of just giving them money, you might actually make a change. But reparations, unless, you were victimized and you're still here, I don't see how reparations can do any good whatsoever.
Who would be the recipient of that money these years after the end of slavery?
Well, I welcome all of the advocates for the HR 40, the commission to study reparation and develop reparation proposals. As you well know, that legislation is very detailed, very precise. It deals with...
and very full of bull crap.
Establishment of a commission that responds to the need for restoration and repair of America's original sin, and the idea that African Americans suffer stark disparities that can be attributed to the history of slavery. And when there was no...
Really, it could be pointed towards the Democrat Party more than anything. I mean, really, that's our ultimate original sin, is the creation of two political parties. That's our original sin. If we didn't have political parties and people were forced to serve, listen, I'm going to say forced. I mean, I think that everybody should serve 2 years in some form or fashion after high school. You either go in the military, you go to do AmeriCorps or Peace Corps, or whatever. You know, you serve your fellow man, preferably military, but you serve your fellow man for 2 years. And then, like the Greeks, you go in a lottery system, not for just for jury duty, but also to be in Congress. I think that would be fantastic. I mean, it works for juries, and there's no way people can say, well, you know, you can't just put anybody up in Congress. Really? Have you looked at Sheila Jackson Lee's record? Have you looked at who she actually is? I mean, I'll tell you who she actually is right now, and then we'll finish that report. This is unbelievable who this person is, right? She was born in 1950. She's 70 years old right now. She went into politics in 1990. Now, it doesn't say anything about activism or anything like that before, but most likely she was something besides just a politician. She's probably an activist before that. But in 1990, she goes into politics, right? And that was a member of Houston City Council from the at-large district. She stayed there for 5 years until 1995, and then she ran for U.S. House of Representatives from Texas's 18th district, and she's been there since 1995. Yeah. That should tell you, you know, first of all, certain parts of Texas where she's located is horrendous that she covers. But more than anything, you know, this is what people have to realize about representatives and senators is you may elect them, you know, as your state representative, but they're really the people who are going to go and cause havoc in the entire nation. Look at AOC. She's about as bright as a box of hammers, but has the influence and the power of a real statesman or dictator or fascist person or whatever you want to call her. And she wields that power, making decisions based on ideological special interests, not what's effective. But when you look at Sheila Jackson Lee, you're looking at somebody who is pretty much a 30-year politician and somebody who has done nothing really to help communities, but ultimately to hurt them. That's what she does. She's a part of the Democrat Party. And it's not democratic as they have here on WikiLeaks, where I'm looking up her profile. So it's just insulting the people that are in Washington, D.C. And if you think that you're not capable of serving because you haven't done this or you haven't done that, it's crazy. You can. These people, I mean, I can't remember how many felons. They did a study once of how many people were felons in Washington, D.C., and it's a lot. It's dramatic how many are there. Just like Hollywood, there's felons, it's high school dropouts. Like the majority of people up there are high school dropouts, and they're influencers. How is that possible? What are you going to learn from them? How to cry on cue?
Opportunity to in any way correct it, to provide any transfer of wealth, the stark discrimination and racism from Jim Crowism to lynching. This commission will open up hearings with presidential appointees and begin to develop what the systemic response.
What does that mean, presidential appointees? Is she talking about people that this president is appointing? Because they don't do anything with presidential appointees. I mean, hell, the guy can't even get people appointed. It's just like word salad jargon with this lady. And there's no pushback from Malta McCullough. She just sits there looking with these squinted eyes like she's hearing a dog whistle.
Should be to systemic racism. So I can't make judgments on proposals that are being made by various groups. I know the mayors. They're great leaders. I respect them. I look forward to.
Good Lord. We know that's not true. We know that the majority of these mayors, I mean, have you noticed? Have you looked at the reality of what's, I know it's hard to watch TV now and listen to the news, but I mean, do you realize how, like I played that clip yesterday from 2016, how I was talking about we have a failed government. Do you realize how bad these people are at the job they were hired to do? They can't lead. They don't know how to inspire. They don't know how to look at something and say, this is broken and I think this is how we fix it. They don't do that. Everything they touch turns to shit, and then they gold plate it and try to feed it to the American people.
Working with them, but I'm looking also forward to.
Here she goes. She's going into overdrive with trying to interrupt her so she can get to the end of her segment.
Advocating for this legislation that then will look at all of the proposals that are being made. Of course, mayors have jurisdiction over their own cities, and I welcome their thoughts about their own cities. But the commission that I am promoting and carrying in the United States Congress with the largest number of supporters we've ever had across the nation is about the commission to deal with the original sin that was government sanctioned by the federal, by the black, by lynch. We will do that. And you know what? We will pierce into this hopelessness in the black community that may generate these young men. If it was the cause of the death, she's gonna stop her. She's nervous. She's got to hit that brake. And the little 9-year-old, we will pierce into that and find systemic ways to deal with the systemic racism that has created the atmosphere.
So I don't know if you heard that part, but she's talking about, Sheila Jackson Lee's talking about finding the people who killed these kids and making a systemic change. What does that mean? You see, this is just talk. Just talk. I'll play that part again.
And carrying in the United States Congress with the largest number of supporters we've ever had across the nation is about the commission to deal with the original sin that was government sanctioned by the federal, by the black, by lynch. We will do that. And you know what? We will pierce into this hopelessness in the black community that may generate these young men. If it was the cause of the death of this little baby and these teenagers and the little 9-year-old, we will pierce into that and find systemic ways to deal with the systemic racism that has created the atmosphere.
This has nothing to do with stopping anybody from doing anything bad.
For these young men to be engaged in this kind of violence, if that is the case, and that will be getting these guns off the street, but also reasonable gun laws that have been rejected in the United States Congress by those who are attending to the National Rifle Association.
All right. Well,
thank you for having
Thank you. Thank you.
See, nothing she said there. She's talking about passing laws to regulate guns and gun sales and gun ownership, none of which will have any effect on the people who are carrying out the crime and shooting all these children. I don't know how these people get into office and who gives these people shows. See, this is a problem with media. You have people who have no experience in media. Almost all the people in media have zero experience. A lot of the people who are telling you that they have experience are lying, right? We've seen that in media as well. So they either have no experience or they're just lying about it. And so they don't fully understand a lot of the times what the people that they're interviewing are actually saying. So they don't really know when to interrupt them. They don't know how to press back. They don't know what questions to ask because they have no clue about the reality of what's going on. If it's not written in front of them, they're not going to know. It's a sad state of affairs for this country, I'm telling you, and for media in general. I tell you what, let's take a break real quick. We'll come right back. I want to play Don Lemon's soundbite, and then I'm going to let you go on your Wednesday. We'll be right back. I know I talk a lot about my books on this show, but I just want to make sure that if you have not checked out Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and its 2 workbooks that go with it, that you at least go check it out. You can go on and listen to the first, 2 minutes of it on Amazon if you just click on listen here, and you can at least hear what I'm saying. The important thing that you have to take away from this is that this book, like no other, is going to show you how attackers look at you and teach you how to look at yourself the same way, how to divide your life into sectors, how to target each sector with that knowledge and understanding, those tactics, techniques, and procedures. And then the workbooks allow you to do your own threat assessment on every aspect of your life, and then take that information and put it into the defense assessment workbook. Now, along with that, I designed, along with Danielle Kreiner, a children's book called The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And it's a book of pictures that you can give your child, and in the pictures are embedded security, safety, awareness, and communication lessons. And the parent, you can go to teamlittlebigs.com and download the lesson plans. So what you literally have is a way to teach your child non-verbally. They can sit there and look at the books, and you can point to those pictures and really start them off at a very, very young age, helping them to understand what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and how to communicate these things. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival was written for, I would say, people 10 years and up. Definitely for an adult to understand the world that they live in. And The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, was written with those children in mind, so we can start them out young to understand what they need to do to stay safe and how to communicate these things. Trust me, folks, I did this for you, and I hope that you'll go check them out, because this is how you secure your homeland. The Adventures of Team Little Bigs and Sheep No More. Go get them. And let's get back to the show. All right, I'm looking up this this back and forth between, gosh, it's like Dumb and Dumber. I'm not sure who's dumber, but I think it's Don Lemon. But it's between Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo. Good gracious. Just another example of where we've gone, the level that's gone in media. So this is Don Lemon, where he's trying to tell it like it is. And Don Lemon basically has done nothing in his life. He's a journalist. He, basically, that's all he's done. Nothing else. He's one of these people who have no experience. He was a journalist. He was collecting news and reporting it. And then somehow he gets a show where he's an influencer and actually telling the world how it is. And when you look up his bio, there's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing there. But the thing that does alarm me, when I say there's nothing there, it's like he was in college, and then he got a job with actually Fox, local station, and a few other things, NBC, and then ended up on CNN in 2006, and then has been there ever since, and now is like an influencer. So they have awards and honors and awards, and I was looking at this, and the first thing it says, 2002, Lemon was an Edward R. Murrow Award for his coverage of the capture of the D.C. area sniper. Now, I'm going to go on a limb here and say that these, because this is the way it was for me with all the stuff that I was on the news, we're the ones that are there actually telling the things that are interesting. The other people are just hosting a show. That's all they're moderating in between experts. But experts don't get awards. It's these people get the awards. I don't know how that's the case, but they come on there and they give their opinion, or they ask this question that somebody else has formulated of the expert that's actually on there, and then they go off and get an award for it. So he got that. He also got awarded for his reports on Hurricane Katrina. But then what's even better is, as I go down here, it says he was voted one of the 150 most influential African Americans by Ebony Magazine. You're telling me, Ebony Magazine, that Don Lemon is as good as you could get in 150 people in this entire country, and that's as good as it gets. Don Lemon, 150th most influential person, as according to Ebony Magazine. Out of all the black guys that have done amazing things, flying jet aircraft in the military, in the Navy, landing on aircraft carriers, Navy SEALs, even an actor over Don Lemon. And I don't give the actors a lot of credit, but at least they have a craft that they've become a specialist in. And this guy's been drunk on television. But then he was voted one of the 50 most influential LGBTQ people in media. These special interest groups, or these groups that, the minority groups, I guess you could say. And again, I don't like those terms, minority. I think we are a people, and we should all look at each other as equal in opportunity and equal in freedom. And that's why I don't like this minority stuff, because it starts creating and painting a false picture that doesn't really exist. But when we look at the way that these different groups, special interest groups, always are voting each other in, and they pump these people up as being most influential, and the next thing you know, they have a show where they're giving their opinion, and they literally have no experience in anything. It's so, I don't know if you can tell, but it's very aggravating to me. So let's listen. This is unbelievable. Let's listen to this genius as he talks about, well, I'm just going to play it, okay? I'm going to play it because anybody who's read the Bible, the New Testament, and it has to do with this statement that he makes, will know in an instant how wrong this guy actually is and how ridiculous the things are that come out of his mouth.
You cannot fall for this president trying to divide people. So if someone says, oh, this is going to go way too far, well, how far is this going to go? Just say, no, that's not what we're doing here. What we're trying to do is learn about each other. We're trying to put history in the right context. We're trying to.
So he's going to give us a history lesson now, okay? He says we need to put history in the right context. So this is Don Lemon's history right here.
To get you to understand that a lot of what you've been taught in history has been propaganda. And some
this is another thing that they do. So I saw this today. Perfect example of this. I saw this today. The president gave a press conference outside of the White House today, and CNN was reporting that he was slurring his words and he sounded confused. The interesting thing is that Joe Biden just gave a press conference, and he actually did sound confused and was totally slurring his words. And I'm not saying that because I'm a fan of President Trump. I mean, it's just a fact that President Trump did not slur his words. He was very clear on what he was saying. It's a typical President Trump type of presser. I mean, I actually like him when he's not reading stuff. I mean, I think if he had an outline and he just went off that, he'd probably be better off. But because I think he knows what he's talking about. But you look at Joe Biden, he can't make a coherent sentence. The guy is in trouble, physically and mentally. But what they do is they see what's happening, and the way they react to problems that they have is they blame the other side for the exact same thing, and then they mass produce that blame so that they create this echo chamber, and everybody thinks, oh, well, I didn't see it, but I heard that the president was slurring his words and was confused. And that's the way they work. They won't mention anything about Joe Biden. They won't even write a headline about that. And that's what Don Lemon's doing right here.
You need to unlearn so that you can become a better citizen, and that the promise of what America is available to all. Why not have
So according to Don Lemon, we need to unlearn what we know about history in this country and then be reprogrammed. But then he has the sentence right before that talking about propaganda.
mindset of, well, maybe we should be taking down some of these statues.
Yeah, engage the fear.
Exactly.
Engage the fear.
But people are afraid
where does
to
that
change.
come from? Where does it?
This reminds me of the video of those two little babies in front of the refrigerator in the kitchen having a conversation with each other. Here it is right here. Listen. Now You tell me that these two idiots don't sound exactly like that. They're just using the English language.
Yeah.
But that's not coming from a place of logic. Nobody's saying, well, that it never ends. Yeah, it does end, first of all, because what you're dealing with is a time in history where slavery was okay, and how you reconcile that with where you want to be. It's not about a race. It's about proper place. Yeah. And fear frustrates that effort. But Chris, they're coming for all of us. They're coming for everything.
Man, I'm so glad I thought of that. I hope they don't pull this podcast down because I'm playing this. This is the Talking Twin Babies, Part 2 official trailer, just so in case anybody, and it was from J. Randall 22011. I guess that's the handle on YouTube. But anyway, let's get back to this because it sounds just about as ridiculous as these two little babies. And what's even worse about this is that they're talking about slavery and they're talking about our history and how we can fix things, and yet it sounds just like these two little babies. It's terrible.
How bad?
But it's not.
That's just what he's preaching,
right? But it's not just the Trumpers, as you say, right? It's not just the Trump apologists and the Trump supporters. It's very well-meaning liberals as well who are feeling these things. And if you're having,
so you notice that he says Trump and Trump supporters, and then when he explains, when he refers to the liberals, it's well-meaning liberals. Interesting.
Feelings, then maybe that means that you have a conscience about it, and that's actually the right feeling to have, and you should be engaged in a discussion. But here's the thing. Jesus Christ, if you believe in, if that.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this before he says this, okay? Because this is probably one of the dumbest things that has ever been said in media, right? It goes in the face of everything that Jesus said in the Bible and that was written about him in the Bible, and then Don Lemon says this.
And if you're having those feelings, then maybe that means that you have a conscience about it, and that's actually the right feeling to have, and you should be engaged in a discussion. But here's the thing. Jesus Christ, if you believe in, if that's who you believe in, Jesus Christ, admittedly was not perfect when he was here on this earth. So
where did Jesus ever admit that he wasn't perfect? In fact, that is how, and as far as the Christian belief goes, and I'm a Christian, that is what allowed him to be the ultimate sacrifice. Remember, Jesus was Jewish, and they had sacrifices for different sins, different types of sacrifices, maybe a dove or a lamb or a burnt offering where you burn some wheat or something. They had different offerings for different sins. And Jesus represented the last and ultimate payment that would have to be made. The sacrifice would have to be made. So if you sin, he paid the blood price for your sin, and he's the one that goes before you. And the way he was allowed to do that is because he was sinless. So you're not going to take the blood of a sinner, or in the case of the way it was before, you're not going to take a defiled bird, a dirty bird, or a lamb that is crippled, or wheat that wasn't good, that was rotten. You're not going to sacrifice that. You're supposed to take the best of what you have, and that is your sacrifice unto God. Well, that was Jesus, sinless and willing to serve and sacrifice for the people. He was God incarnate on earth, and in effect, God became a man and gave his own life after living sinless on the earth. That is what is stated in the Bible. But according to Don Lemon, it's more like this.
And that's actually the right feeling to have, and you should be engaged in a discussion. But here's the thing. Jesus Christ, if that's who you believe in, Jesus Christ, admittedly was not perfect when he was here on this earth. So
he probably thinks Christ is his last name. Christ means Messiah, the Messiah, Jesus the Messiah. Most people, I don't know if most people do, but I know he probably thinks his name is like Roger Smith. It was Jesus Christ.
Why are we deifying the founders of this country, many of whom owned slaves? And in the Constitution, the original one, they didn't want, they put slavery in there, that slavery should be abolished because it was the way the king wanted. And then the Congress said, no way. And so they had to come up with an alternative about 3/5 of a man.
Well, like, for sure, Congress said, no way, for sure, Don Lemon.
No.
They knew that they had an inconsistency with
there
their
you
logic.
go. So
all
they're not
men
perfect.
are created equal,
They're not
except
perfect.
these men.
We have to stop deifying them. And so, yes.
Well, I think it's easy to deify Christ, who was a deity. Just like that.
Did some great things, and they created a constitution and a blueprint for us that wasn't perfect.
So according to Don Lemon, the founding fathers created a blueprint for us, In other words, they didn't create the Constitution, the form of government. Well, he did say the Constitution, but it's not like they formed the government in the way that it is and always shall be. It was a blueprint for us to figure it out. In other words, they couldn't figure it out. I think they did a pretty damn good job of figuring it out. I mean, the country's lasted for 244 years, and it was founded in a time where there was no cell phones, there was nothing. There wasn't even electricity at that point in time. And so, but according to Don Lemon, everything that they did that has lasted 240 years and allowed this country to become what it is has allowed for the stoppage of slavery because of the way they wrote the Constitution, the way they did the dollar bills, the way they did everything. Warfare, foreign policy. He's saying that was just a blueprint because we're so much more superior now.
At the time, and that's good, but they weren't perfect either. And so as Americans, all of us should come together and have these conversations and get together and stop letting someone divide us. No one is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Not even.
Again, this is what they do. Don Lemon's making it sound like the president is the divisive one. The president never goes out and tries to. The only people that he talks to, like the media talks about him, is the media. He doesn't go around saying bad things about people and making them seem like they're less than he is, or that this group should be mad at that group, or blacks should be mad at whites, and cops should, this. I mean, it's all divisive in the media and the left. The president is the last one that is doing that, but that's not according to Don Lemon. The wisdom of Don.
Founding father.
Nothing human is perfect. We are all fallible, especially people are limited by their time. There's no question about that. But here's the good news.
Oh, yeah.
Clarity is a good thing. Okay.
Wow. When Chris Cuomo talks, the world just changes, doesn't it? It's incredible. So I hate to ruin your day with a little bit of Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo, but I think that's where I'm going to stop the show for today, because it just keeps going and going. I mean, these two guys and Sheila Jackson Lee and Fox News, it's just gone to a point where I don't know, besides these podcasts, what hope do we have as far as getting news out to you all? It's not going to happen. They don't even use experts hardly at all in media anymore. They certainly don't do it on the left, but even on the Fox, which I guess you could call a little left of center, they don't really use experts anymore, unless you're under the age of 26, it seems like. But I do want to say one thing. Yesterday, and I got a lot of blowback from people. It seems like Jeff Sessions has the same amount of trolls as the left, which I find very interesting, and the same type of stuff that they say on Twitter. I always find that very interesting. But it appears, as of today, that we know this for a fact, that Jeff Sessions lost, which I was actually telling people yesterday that they should go out and they should vote for Tommy Tuberville. I think that's how I'm saying the coach's name, Tuberville. He was a former college football coach, two-time SEC Coach of the Year, and so on and so forth. 6-time National Coach of the Year awards, Republican candidate of the United States Senate. And now he is the Republican Senate candidate. And Jeff Sessions is no more. And hopefully he'll win, and he'll go to the Senate. And I think I said Senate race a minute ago. I hope I did. And this is what we need. Now, I don't know. Listen, I don't know Tommy's politics. I really don't. But and people have written and accused him of being a rhino and this and that. But listen, Jeff Sessions, people are like, he never took $1 from special interests or lobbyists. Well, taking cash payments is only one of the ways that these people actually get paid. In fact, it's probably one of the lesser ways that they get paid now. I mean, they could get paid in all kinds of ways. Real estate, good business deals, favors here, favors there. That's the way it works. It's not just about cash. It's not just about money. It's about not showing that they got paid. How do you think all these people get freaking mega rich? I mean, maybe it's just a stock tip. Remember, they don't really get in trouble for insider trading. We had 3 or 4 of them do it this time. Only one of them kind of got in trouble. Kind of. So I'm glad Jeff Sessions is gone, because what he did to the president and what he did to this country, remember, when he recused himself from the whole Russian thing, it really did a number on it. Just injected that investigation with steroids, because Mueller came in and Comey was run amok. He was hired to do a job as the attorney general, and he failed. And then if you go back and you look at how many years he's been in office, maybe we'll talk about this later on this week. He's been in office for 40 years. And for what? What do these people die? Like John McCain, for instance. John McCain died. They had him, all parading him all over Washington, D.C., as though he was some mega hero that did so much for this nation. Go back right now and tell me what John McCain did for this country that sustained the country, that was an effective decision, that really, really changed things. You're not going to be able to find a single thing. And that's all of these people are like this. So again, Tommy Tuberville, I don't know his politics. Admittedly, I don't know it, but I'm okay with the message, and I hope he goes there and is a staunch conservative. But I'm okay, even if we're trading out one rhino for another, or one wishy-washy guy for another. At least it sent a message to somebody who's been sitting there for 40 years that you're not safe anymore. And I'm okay with that. I mean, I think it's a dangerous game to play. I'd rather, and I hopefully Tommy will get in there and do some amazing stuff and will toe the conservative line. But I don't know. But still, it's worth, I think the message sent is worth it. Also, I think Susan Collins lost. Good riddance. And Trump, the people that he backed yesterday came out on top. And I think it still shows that his power of influence is still there. And I think that's awesome, Mr. President. So on this Wednesday, I want you to concentrate on this, folks. I want you to realize that as the news media ebbs and flows, and then you get angry because there's a riot or because people are saying things, and you think, oh, we got to act, and then things calm down. You have to maintain your focus and continue to push forward, communicating with each other, setting up meetings so you can discuss the reality of what's going on. Don't think it's getting better. Just because it's quiet doesn't mean it's better. So while you sit back and everything seems like, well, this week it's kind of calm, remember, the movement of communism and these criminal governors and mayors and congressmen and senators, it's still in full effect. And you are the answer for that. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out.